Oh God. Oh no, we're losing Polygon. Oh. But anyway, you know, games journalism used to be a form of information that people would use. Or like, I guess before games journalism, you had like demos, you had like Game Informer, you had all these like guidebooks and stuff. And people use them, and again, many of the older game journalist sites had like cheats on them. They had like walkthroughs, builds. If you were in the World of Warcraft, I think I read one that just lists off a bunch of Dynasty Warriors knockoffs. Some of them I played. Take a drink. 99 Nights being one of them. Fantastic fucking game. But they've shot themselves in the foot when Gamergate came along, and what Gamergate was, like, put simply, was the consumer going against the industry that was supposed to represent them but wasn't, because they had their own biases. They wanted to become this privileged class that just demands to exist. And they're going against the very people that, they've entered this space and sent to represent. And once that happened, and it was an odd situation, and it was they gotta have a real black eye from Gamergate, because 20 years in the future they can't shut the fuck up about it, or 10 years in the future. I think Gamergate was 2014, 2015. So, and I believe they're going to probably bring it up in this video. And once that happened, because it was one of those beautiful situations where the furry from Tumblr with with pronouns and mental illnesses in the bio was locking hands with the Christian evangelical from Facebook, specifically locking hands and shit on the games journalists, because out of nowhere they just started spurting the fuck out, and they really tried to make this into gamers sexist, gamers misogynist, gamers hate women thing. But when you actually looked at the type of people that was going after their sponsors, going after their advertisers, it told a different story. Fast forward to today, Polygon is laying off lots of people. All these game journalist sites are laying off people because no one's watching them anymore. Like, there's this there's this idea that just game journalists is just a bunch of ninnies. Like, no one cares for them. No one they don't even give the right information, and they've done every single thing in the book to shoot themselves in the foot, shilling for bad products, shitting on good products. And now no one cares. So because of this, they're being laid off. And no one wants to talk about why they're being laid off or why they're dropping them. But, I mean, we know that it's happening. So let's give this a watch.
Play themselves. Simple as that. You know, we've been following the decline of games media on this channel for over a year now, and it's because I find it absolutely fascinating. Because from my perspective, these guys have all the tools at their disposal to be as successful as possible. Far more successful than I could ever be, but they don't wield it with any real conviction.
Yeah, they wield it as a weapon against this fictional group of people that they've erected in their head, this caricature of people that they've erected in their head, and they demand that anyone that disagrees with them is that person. They also are given a shit ton of privileges on like social media sites, like on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. Well, until Elon walked in, on social media sites and on every day, and even on like, you know, well, legacy and news media, like all these privileges, and you would think they'd be successful, and at one point they were. At one point they had power. Because I remember when Fallout New Vegas DLC, not DLC, the base game got like a 7 out of 10 for some fucking reason. I thought it was a perfect game, but it got a 7 out of 10, and the people that made that game didn't get a bonus because of it. And it's like, a lot more people even liked New Vegas over 3, I included. But yeah, they had that power, and it was power that was primarily manufactured, which is why they're even imposing on game studios, using their influence and their power to impose things in the studios that the consumer doesn't want. Because again, the companies, they don't listen to the consumer, they don't care. Like they only listen to their constituents and their shills and their in group. They don't listen to you, the gamer. And because of that, they're in the situation they're in right now.
Most cases, it's wielded with ego more than anything else. They have the access, they have the experience, they have the pipelines, the platform. They used to have the audience, but they don't have that anymore. The reader, the gamer, the people that they need to be able to have a job in the first place, they became insignificant to them, or an enemy in some cases. And when you turn your back on the people that keep you employed, well, you find yourself unemployed.
Yeah, they also hired a lot of weird people that don't care for games, don't care for the consumer, don't care for like even the industry, but it's like they really wanted to be a CNN journalist, but they couldn't. So they landed in fucking Polygon. But they still tried to be like one. They tried to leverage their power to be like journalists, but the fact of the matter is the consumer doesn't fucking care. I mean, if you want to be a CNN journalist and talk about that shit, fine. But you're a games journalist. You talk about video games, and the consumer doesn't care this morality throwing and them standing on their high horse. And if you do it, even if you are right, even if you are correct, you will lose people regardless.
Odd how that works. Polygon is the latest to fall, and I think they're emblematic because in a lot of cases they represent the meme of the journalists that hate the gamers. Well, not all of them, just the ones that they disagree with, which just so happens to be the vast majority of them, which doesn't work out very well for them. But, you know, talented writers know how to cross that bridge. They know that you can still communicate and find ways to communicate with an audience that you disagree with. But Polygon is the best example of what happens when you turn your back on them entirely or you take up arms against them. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about the fall of Polygon. I want to talk about the continued death throes of legacy media, but I still think written media has value. A diversity of opinions and platforms is necessary, but that would require for games media to be relatable and to start delivering value.
Yeah, you see, now everyone's a gamer, right? Every celebrity, every, like, person, hell, even Elon Musk, I believe he's a gamer, but he got into trouble for, you know, having other people boost his account. So, this is a space becoming relevant. Like when I grew up, you were bullied for playing games. But now, people attack you for saying, oh, this person's a fake gamer, this person's not a gamer, or fake gamers don't exist. Which is odd, right? Because you can have fake money, right? You can have fake anything else, but a fake gamer does. Like someone who enters the space specifically because it's popular and specifically to impose weird moral values that no one fucking cares about. Like that type of person just simply does not exist, according to the very individuals that we're talking about right now, that the consumer is 100% against. And they could have just shut the fuck up. They could have not have weaponized the gamer, weaponized this industry against them, but they chose to. And because of that, they're at the situation they're at now.
And I don't see that happening. Polygon has been sold off to Valnet. Most of its staff has been laid off. Only a few senior staff remain. Made their Doom 2016 gameplay video live on as a testament to their contributions to this industry. While it may come as a shock to some, it shouldn't, especially given how severe the layoffs have been across gaming media. Anyone who's been paying attention could have seen this coming. The entire writing staff announced their exits on Blue Sky, which tells you everything that you need to know. And in the eyes...
Yeah, like Blue Sky. What? Do you think the consumer is on Blue Sky, or is it on X? Are they on YouTube? Hell, even Facebook. There's some groups there. Like, why run to this echo chamber of people who spurred the fuck out about things that they themselves have caused to happen? Like, why I get it, you want to run off to your safe space, but in business, as a company, as an industry, you should be going to the place where the majority of your consumers are, not an echo chamber. Like, oh, Blue Sky, who the fuck cares? I know a lot of people have accounts just if they're popular, they have the account just so someone else doesn't take it. But I never had an account or never really cared to get one. But why are they running away from their consumer? Like, the gamer has won. One, because they're failing, they're going under. Two, they're running away from the gamer. They're running away from their consumers. They're running to their safe spaces and their echo chambers where them and their constituents, their besties are, and they're announcing, "Well, we're done, son," instead of on a site that matters. It's like they know the consumer will laugh at them and be like, "Good fucking riddance," you know.
Of many gamers, this wasn't a tragedy. It was a long overdue correction. I'm just going to say it, nobody reads gaming articles like they used to. I've documented this decline before, but it's worth reiterating just how far these platforms have fallen. Legacy sites like IGN, Kotaku, PC Gamer, GameSpot, Polygon, all of them started their descent around 2014. And they had a steep decline after 2018 that they never bounced back from. In the eyes of the players, these sites have stopped being informative. They've stopped being relatable. They started pushing wedge issues, parroting PR talking points, and outright alienating the very people who once supported them. Most articles now feel like sanitized marketing, or worse, ideological messaging wrapped in clickbait headlines. And year after year, we've watched as these sites have consolidated, laid off, or pivoted to something completely irrelevant in a desperate attempt to stay relevant. And I think that no other outlet better represents that downfall than Polygon. When Polygon launched in 2012, it was ambitious. They wanted to be more than just a review site. They wanted to set a standard, uncensored opinions, long-form journalism, video documentaries, cultural think pieces, and for a while, it worked. Their earlier reviews were sharp, polished, and well-written. They gave you far more than you asked for, but you read it anyway because it was damn good content. In a lot of ways...
Yeah, and it was people at least trying to relate to the consumer. Like, I look at the old E3 interviews where a journalist would just talk to a bunch of dudes waiting outside of the Halo 3 release. You know, we're waiting outside of the Halo Con, and it's just a dude talking to the consumer, talking to the gamers about the game, talking to the people who enjoyed the hobby about the hobby. And it was just in that's it. That's all. It wasn't them trying to go after anyone. It wasn't them, trying to bring the weird politics and shit that no one... It's not that no one cares about it, it's that there's a place for it. And it's not games journalism. And now nobody cares. Right? Like, you see things like these in the background, you're like, okay, well, I guess he might have bought this and that, so he obviously is trying to relate, but now that's just not who they are anymore. Okay, maybe they laid off the people who didn't care, they cycled in a bunch of, or they laid off the people who did care, cycled in a bunch of weird people who have ideologies, and they've got the other people fired, or made the workplace you can't even work there because they made it very toxic. Now all you have are people that talk about Trump and Elon and all that. Like, it's like, I don't fucking care to hear about that. And if I'm looking for games journalism, like, I want to know what new indie games come out. I want to know, what, who's making it in the industry, who's not, what good games are out, and not any of this weird shit.
Some of their earlier writing reflects what we see in video reviews and commentary today, introspective takes on how playing a game makes you feel, what it reminds you of, what you wished other studios could learn from, and they had a solid pulse on what concerned players the most. But then there was a cultural shift, and Polygon just didn't shift with it. Instead, they veered off a cliff. The turning point came with Gamergate 2014, a controversial flashpoint in the industry that changed the tone of games media pretty much across the board. While some outlets were a little bit more cautious, Polygon went all in, leaning into this activist-adjacent, socially progressive lens that they began to frame every game through identity politics. Suddenly, the reviews weren't about what a game did well, they were about what it failed to represent. And I think their review of Bayonetta 2 is probably the best example of this, a mechanically brilliant action game, well loved and reviewed across the board. And they knocked it down to a 7.5 out of 10 because the reviewer didn't like how sexy the main character was, not because of the game.
And it's things like this that you see and you're like, what? Like, I have some real bad news for you. Who do you think's the demographic of people who play games? Like, I get it. You're trying to throw a moral label. Shut the fuck up about the moral label for 5 seconds and just answer the question. Yes, guys, men. And I know there's this shift because you see gacha games like Nikkei Gaza Victory. Like, games like these are printing money, and it's effectively gooner games. It's like, a lot of people are like, yes, she is sexualized, and that's what we want in our fiction. That's what we want in our games. So, if you want my money, you put that in. If you don't want my money, okay, you won't get it. I mean, it's really just that simple. Like, I'm standing on business here. Put ass and titties in the game, or you're not getting my fucking money.
Play not because of the performance, because of problematic sexualization. This is the kind of scoring that doesn't just confuse people, it infuriates them. Polygon wasn't just judging the game, they were judging the player. While not saying it overtly, they were saying that this is the kind of content that shouldn't exist, and you shouldn't be okay with liking it. Then came their review of...
and again, no one cares for this weird fucking moral grandstanding that they wanted to do. It's like, shut the hell up. I'll spend my money however fucking way I want. If you personally don't like that, fine. But you're not mommy, you're not daddy, and you're not the church. You're not a moral monolith, You're a company. You give us information. That's the point. That's your whole business model. The problem is they stopped doing that, and people stopped listening to them.
Come Deliverance, where they called the game woefully bland and claimed that women in the game seem to only have 3 functions. They either perform as 2-dimensional sex objects, fetch water from a river, or do needlepoint, ignoring the setting 15 cents.
Again, I don't know how the fuck you think women were treated in the 1500s Europe. But I can tell you this game is very accurate to that time period because it's trying to portray that time period. So, yes, and all the men were soldiers that were dying and fighting to protect the women that were fetching water from the river, doing needlepoint, or the 2-dimensional sex objects. It's like, yes.
Century Bohemia, ignoring Teresa, the woman that saves your life, protects you, and then shares one of the most emotionally grounded relationships that are in the game, ignoring the historical context entirely because it didn't fit the narrative that they wanted to push. A game that prided itself on historical accuracy needed to bend itself to popular media trends and revisionism instead of just letting it exist as a contrast to how far we've come as people and as a civilization. I don't think these outlets or these writers understand.
Yeah, and this is what I mean when I say they try to impose these odd rules and narratives. Like they tried to scare game developers, scare companies into this odd way of thinking. Then you have companies like Sweet Baby that sold themselves as the solution. Like, it absolutely was a grift. And the grift would have worked if at least half the games were good that had Sweet Baby and had these odd consultancy companies, but that's not what happened. Like, the games that had these consultancy companies over them were dog shit narratively. Some of them didn't even fucking work. Like, they added these, like, weird things where they tried to, like, challenge gender norms or whatever the fuck. Then this is according to their words. I still don't know what the fuck they mean by this. And it's a game. It's fiction. It doesn't fucking exist. But they treated it like reality. They treated it like, no, this fictional character, does exist, and you need to portray them right because we don't trust the gamer. We think if the gamer sees this, that it will inject the information in their brain. And because of that, you got a lot of games that came out that were either just boring and bland, didn't really try to, achieve anything. And that was at best. At worst, you had games that actively insulted your time, you, the consumer, your senses. And when you had this happen, it galvanized a lot of gamers, a lot of people that just didn't care against these people because they itched their way into their hobby, into the things they enjoy, in the privacy of their own home. And they're like, okay, I guess I will act against these people. I will vote against them. So, and that's where we're at right now. People are voting with their wallet, they're voting with their time, they're voting with their eyes, and they're turning all that away from companies like Polygon.
The kind of damage that this approach does, not only does it do damage to their own credibility, but it does it to the games themselves. Contrast matters. Games that are exploring historical themes or history itself should be able to present that world as it was, not as they wish it would have been. But rather than allow creative talent to stand on its own, the media often demands ideological conformity, filtering everything through modern social commentary. And when the game doesn't comply, they wield their platforms like weapons, shaming these developers, poisoning discourse, and trying to turn the audiences against them. Final Fantasy 16 went through the exact same thing.
This happened for Black Myth Wukong, or at least they attempted to do it. And maybe it did work because it didn't get the Game Award, so maybe it worked. Who knows? This happened against Stellar Blade, a game that the consumer universally liked. This happened for Hogwarts Legacy. Like these things, you see with your eyes these things happening, but people that are just either not part of the conversation or they shut their eyes to it will be like, oh, well, what are you talking about? It's like, well, my brother in Christ, I guess you're just not part of the discourse. If you don't care, you don't care, but don't try to muddy what we're talking about. We're talking about relatively high standards that were placed 20-ish years ago in gaming that is now being erased by people who don't care for games, don't care for the audience, don't care for the consumer. Or maybe they care tangentially, but they surround themselves by people with these odd ideologies, and because of that, you cannot, and they wield their power against games journalists, against the consumer, against game studios, and against even the people in their own industry to make sure they're also conforming. That happens, and now we're at this point where games are just not allowed to be video games. They're not allowed to be art.
Wanted to tell a grounded Northern European inspired fantasy story, but when the director explained that excessive diversity would conflict with the game's lore and tone, he was met with headlines like Final Fantasy XVI dev has a terrible answer for why the game is so white, or Final Fantasy XVI has no business abiding by historical realism. This wasn't coverage, it was a correction, a demand that even fiction needs to submit to ideological vetting. I think that these developers should have the freedom to create.
Yeah, they have no they're not restricted, but they can do whatever the fuck they want. Like, the developers of this game, they don't have to capitulate to these people, and they know they don't because the game sold. Like, the game sold to the consumer bought it. Hell, some people bought these, like, people are buying these games to spite the game's journalists, and I don't agree with it. But if this is the way the market is, hell, I mean, if you want to just make money, just spite the journalists, yeah, they'll try to utilize their power and prestige against you and go against you. But at the end of the day, you'll just make a fuck. You can cry in your millions of dollars, well, at least on paper. Because, I mean, if you're in America, God forbid you make money. But you'll just make money, you'll make sales, and hell, people will support you. And people will do this to spite the game journalists. This is how much bad will and spite they've garnered over the years. And, people, you're not allowed to talk about this. If you try to, you'll get dogpiled by a bunch of weirdos on Twitter. So it's like, okay, I guess I'll just not say a damn thing. I'll just put my money, put my time, put my, eyes towards the things I want to see.
Being publicly shamed for not fulfilling someone else's social agenda. Not every game has to represent everyone, and not every creative decision is a political statement. And to be fair, I can already hear the counter argument that players have mounted pressure campaigns to pushing back against what they view as forced representation or initiatives that they don't agree with, but there is a difference between market feedback and institutional pressure. One affects sales, the other shapes perception. The media controls how these games are framed and who sees them. When they start pushing ideology over insight, it stops being criticism and it starts becoming coercion. What the media never seems to be able to grasp is that this outrage cuts both ways. When they pressure studios to mold games into ideological statements, it creates a backlash, not just against that game, but the very idea that these games need to carry a message. Assassin's Creed Shadows, South of Midnight, Concord, they didn't draw fire in a vacuum. The media helped build the environment where these players now push back. You kept shaping the discourse. Don't be surprised when the discourse shapes you right back. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I mean, this is the reason why Polygon and many of these other media outlets have lost their relevance over time, and it's because in the eyes of players, they have become an oppositional force that is using their platforms to pressure studios to make changes, not for the players, but for themselves. And that's all been proven with recent statements made by Daniel Varva, the creator of Kingdom Come Deliverance. In a recent Czech interview, Kingdom Come creator Daniel Varva opened up about the impact Polygon and others had on him after the first game. He said that it felt like there was a sword of Damocles hanging over his head, and he admitted he was very afraid that journalists would pull what they did with the first game on him again, complaining that the sequel wasn't very diverse and blah blah blah, to quote him directly. He talks about how he was afraid that they would scour his Facebook,
Yeah, and again, like, if you're a game developer and you're putting in all the risk, right? Putting in all the money, all of this in, only to have it attacked by a bunch of fucking weirdos who don't care for games. They don't even care if the game sells. They don't care if the consumers are happy with the game. They're theater kids, that they're Karens that just want their Karen mentality like shown back at them just so they can feel like they've imposed on a game developer. And when you have this, like, you're going to feel the way this person felt. Like, you're going to feel the way the CEO felt about these things. 'Cause again, and everyone demands everybody else puts in the risk, fight their battles for them. But if you're a game developer, right, these are things you have to think about. And it's not just the legislation here in America, like, it's legislations in, like, Europe and other countries that you'll want to sell your game to that you have to contend with.
Translate his political rants and write up that he's now a Trumpist right-winger and against this and that. He talks about how that felt like a threat to him and how he was prepared to get fired over it. That is the legacy of Polygon, not just irrelevant articles, fear, self-censorship, development choices made out of survival, not creativity. You can have your opinions on Varva, the choices that he's made and the things that he said. However, this is what happens when coverage turns into punishment, when the writers think that they are moral arbiters instead of critics, when review sites become political weapons instead of industry observers. When the players see the media wield this sort of influence, when they see them fail to represent them, what do you think the end result of that is going to be? And it's not like they've only done this once. They've been doing it the entire time with articles like Yakuza examines masculinity with care but leaves women behind, God of War director on toxic masculinity and why
Oh my fucking god. Oh my god. I have some bad news for you. Who do you think is the targeted demographic for this game? Like, this is, like, Yakuza is absolutely a game written from the perspective of a man. Like, absolutely. Without a doubt. Like, the women are left behind because it's not written from their perspective. Right? That's the point of the Yakuza game. Okay, again, you can throw whatever moral label or have whatever, gripes about it you want, but that's just the truth.
Kratos has to change. Gaming's toxic men. Explained.
And again, you see stupid shit like, who the fuck talks like does your mother talk like this? No, but okay, the weird fucking theater kids in this industry does. They invent terminology that nobody uses. It's like, and why does Kratos need to change? Like, what is this idea that IPs need to mature? Because if that's the case, like, what type of, like, what entertainment should the new generation of kids have if everything's maturing, everything's moving away? Like, should they have good entertainment or not? I mean, they already have CalArts slop. Like, they don't have the cartoons we grew up with anymore. Because, again, the companies don't view cartoons as art. They view it as just a means to an end. So, do you not think they deserve good entertainment? And if the answer is no, like, or will you be surprised when they vote against you? Because, again, there's some damn good games I played as a kid that I absolutely would play today. Hell, if I ever have kids, they will be playing the fucking same games I played in the past. None of this, like, like, this culture of remakes, none of this new shit. Like, okay, maybe a couple new good games, but they'll be playing the shit I played.
Companies so afraid of politics in their games. You watch as their coverage turns from criticizing the industry to criticizing the audience for not agreeing with them. At first, it's a couple of studios that are the issue, and then it's everyone except them is the issue. And you can't expect your readers to want to stick around for that, nor be supportive of you or your industry. I mean, at a certain point, you have to wonder who they're even writing for, because clearly it isn't for the player, because the average gamer is not looking to be scolded, psychoanalyzed, or accused of moral failure every time they load up a title that doesn't match with the editor's worldview. But that's what much of their writing has become, a performance of superiority.
No, they're just looking for a standing ovation with their peers, with the people that, share the same ideology. that they do. You know, they want the yas queen from the other. Like, the consumer doesn't care. You know, they vote against this. It's even gamers that agree with their worldview will see this and be like, "Why the fuck are you being weird, dude? Like, you know, people are going to go against this. Like, I get it, you have daddy issues, but come on now, you're an industry."
Aimed at the very people that they need to stay in business. Instead of cultivating a community, they treated them like they were an obstacle. Instead of insight, they're offering disdain. You cannot insult your readers, ignore their values, and then act surprised when they stop showing up. I mean, look at one of the articles that they wrote this year. These video games kill fascists, cathartic video games to get your anger out in a healthy way. Listen, I'm all about staying abreast on current events, but watching the fascist white cis hetero patriarchy put boots on the necks of anyone they want gets old fast. If you feel like dismantling the systems of oppression with wanton destruction, these games provide the sweet feeling you get from bringing the ruling class down a peg. Bro, what the fuck is this? Have you ever thought about the fact that the vast majority...
What the fuck? That actually gave me a headache. What does this have to do with the game? Like, what does this have to do with the mechanics? What does this have to do? Like, I don't even know what fucking game they're talking about. Like, they've said absolutely nothing in this paragraph.
Majority of the gaming audience doesn't tune into this, likely aren't even paying attention to politics, and they see this extreme rhetoric and honestly veiled call for violence as weird and uncomfortable as hell. You write something like this, you publish this under the banner of a games journalism outlet, and then you wonder why you're sold off and your staff is laid off. You alienated your audience, you scared developers into silence, you turned your platform into a weapon, then you pointed it at the very industry that once embraced you.
Yeah, these things happen, and they'll never admit that this happened, right? Because they're incapable of doing that. But everybody knows, you know, and they can't hide it. Like, this is why no one talks about why journalists are being laid off and replaced with AI, even though most of the journalists probably use Chat GPT. Like, this right here sounded like a Chat GPT line. Right, you could probably get... Well, that's not true. Because if it was Chat GPT, it would sound better. Like, if they were using Chat GPT, they'd be better than what the shit they're coming out with now.
And for what? Look, let me be clear, there are hardworking people in games media who don't buy into any of this. Talented writers that just want to talk about games, who care about storytelling, systems, and creativity, but they have been drowned out, undermined by the loudest voices in the room, the ones who treat players like problems, developers like enemies, and their own platforms like a soapbox. This is how you kill an outlet. Congratulations, mission accomplished. You have a lot of these outlets and writers that are talking at people and not with them, while also at the exact same time being completely detached from reality, which does not help their situation whatsoever. They're pressuring these games to be made. They're pressuring these changes to be made within these games that players aren't even asking for. They're making articles that the audience and the readers aren't even looking for. Look, man, I am not here for marching orders. I am here for gaming news, and if that's not what you're going to give to me, then I have no reason to be here. That's what's happening right now. You know?
Yeah, and everyone thinks this way, right? Like, people go to Games Informer to get information about games. People go to Polygon to get information about games. They don't come for this weird, ideological, gay speech. They come for information. If you're not going to give it to them, I'm going to fuck off to, like, YouTube.
I'll be honest, I had no idea the Polygon was this bad. I had no clue. I haven't really read them in a long time. I usually stick to Insider Gaming because they stick to the news and they have some pretty good writers. But I started going through their article history, and they have some talented people, really talented people. There's some good stuff that they write, but the human eye is trained to find things that don't belong, and there is a lot that doesn't belong on Polygon or on the internet at all, to be honest with you. But you find yourself asking, who is this stuff even being written for? And even more so, why would you even think it's tasteful to post some of this stuff? And I know people want to point out the writers, and they are the ones that are writing it, but you have editors. How did you have jobs?
Well, I mean, they're doing it for clicks. Like, they're becoming just like any old, like, media outlet. They're trying to get clicks, they're trying to get eyes, they're trying to get outrage. And, you notice companies act like this nowadays in entertainment, movies act like this. Like, they're trying to do literally everything else to try to get your eye except making a good fucking product. Because making a good product takes time, money, and effort. And they don't want to do that. Like, are you kidding me? And they don't want to take time to put together a review that people want. You know, they want to use ChatGPT. Yeah, what you're about to say, well, you don't have those jobs anymore because you're not doing them. They're simply not doing their job. They demand to have this space. They demand to have these jobs, even though no one's watching them. And now they're getting laid off because they can't. The company can't meet those demands anymore. And I'm supposed to feel sad about this? No, like, they built up so much spite with me that I don't care. Hell, good fucking riddance. Maybe they'll go back to doing the one thing they exist to do, which is give me games journalism. You know, the very thing that they're on this planet to do, like the very industry that they've plopped their ass down on. Yeah, maybe they should go back to doing that.
You don't have them anymore, but how did you have jobs? You should have known not to be posting this kind of stuff. You should have known that's going to drive people away. You know, I think in a lot of ways it's just social immaturity. That if you disagree with someone on anything, they have to be the enemy. End of story. That's just where this goes. And you can't include their perspective in good faith because, well, it has to be vilified. It has to be demonized. And you're not going to keep an audience that way, and you're definitely not going to be making any money that way. And I think that the industry, I think that these outlets did the same thing that the industry essentially did, which is post-Gamergate, they abandoned the initial audience that they had in search for this wider audience that they believed that was out there that had shared values, but it just doesn't exist. It's just not out there. You know, they have to come to the sobering reality that no matter how much you don't agree with your audience, how vile, how vitriolic, how abhorrent they are, you have to find a middle ground with them.
No, not really that. Like, they hate the fact that they're in this industry. Like I said, they probably really wanted to be like actual, well, CNN actual journalism. It is. It's just, you know, has its own political slant. But they really wanted to be actual journalists fighting the good fight. But they weren't good enough. And they landed in Polygon for games journalists. And they hate that. Like, there's so much spite built up that they have to make to you know, deal with the constituents that they don't care for. They're probably the people that bullied gamers, but they didn't really, unlike the people they bullied that went on to actually join companies and make money and make the game companies good. They're just sitting here, you know, flapping their mouths about shit they don't care, like they don't care about, they know you don't care about, but they want to pour their vitriol to everyone. And again, that when that happens, you get such weird, stupid fucking things that you just pointed out earlier. You know, there's this weird, like, way of, like, speaking that no human being actually, like, your mother doesn't speak that way. Your father doesn't speak that way. But these odd people who probably has a degree, probably went to a university in gender studies do. And that's where we're at right now.
That's it. You have to. You have to find a way to be able to reach them. And I know that people are going to point it out and say, well, oh, LD, look how the gaming audience is. These guys do the exact same thing. They pressure these companies. They use social controversy and things of that sort. It doesn't matter. Guys, I'm just going to tell you, like, I'm just going to tell it to you straight.
The consumer's always right. Like, you may think that is incorrect, but if you don't have money because the consumer is not buying your product, it doesn't matter. Like, stand on business. Like, it doesn't matter what your personal morality is. It doesn't matter how right you think you are, or how right you think you are around the people that think the same way you do. If you don't put out a good product, people are not going to buy it. And the market's not fair, right? It absolutely is not fair. But you chose to be in this market, so maybe you should do the one thing you exist to do.
They're the ones that are paying. They're the ones that you need their attention. So either you figure out a way to be able to reach them, or you are reaching for a job application. That's it.
I mean, now.
You know, that's the thing. The media has just continued to fail to adapt to a lot of these different cultural changes. Even the way that media has been consumed over the years. A lot of that has changed, and they haven't adapted to any of that. And from my perspective, while it might be Polygon today, I think they're all going to be Polygon tomorrow. I'm sorry. Guys, we aren't just losing.
Yeah, like, written format, or I guess typed format, has always kind of just been inferior. Like, people always, like, so many people have, like, some YouTube video pulled up on their second monitor while they're gaming on their first monitor, right? Like, no one's going to really set, like, okay, some people do, but very few people will just, like, set aside time to read through an article. I mean, I do sometimes when I'm doing a video over it, but I'm not going to always do that, you know. And most people just don't do it because you only have so much time in a day. You work for a living, you have family, you have responsibilities. Like, you're not going to read some weird vanity project made by probably ChatGPT, but worse, a games journalist. Like, you're going to just have a video of someone that gives you the information pulled up on a monitor.
Polygon, we are starting to lose all of them. In an article written by Christopher Dring titled "The Number of Video Game Articles Dropped by Over 100,000 in Q1," he writes, the top 135 video game websites published over 635 articles in Q1 this year, Press Engine data reveals. That's a drop of over 13%, or more than 100,000 articles compared to the same period in 2024. That number covers reviews, news, guides, features, and code pages, and includes websites from all around the world. A lot of the biggest drops were at guide-based productions, but there were also big declines amongst major media outlets, including IGN, GameSpot, Famitsu, and Eurogamer. The reason for this decline is no big surprise.
To be fair, this probably happened because, well, they probably are laying people off, but they're also probably using ChatGPT. Like, you don't have, 10 people writing, like, 10 articles. You have, like, 5 people writing, like, 7 or 8 at a time with ChatGPT. And, I mean, you're lowering the workload of the people, you're lowering the amount of people, but you're still whipping out more with less people.
According to Press Engine, it has seen 2,902 press contacts disappear from its database over the past 2 years. Those press contacts include amateur, part-time, and freelance journalists, but it ultimately highlights a significant drop in people writing about video games, with redundancies having hit almost every major media publication. There are other factors that are influencing the drop in video game articles, including a continued shift towards covering the biggest titles, a decision driven by changes to Google's search engine. 100,000 fewer articles and nearly 3,000 fewer press contacts is a dramatic shift, but let's not pretend like this is coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, and the consumer's also moving towards, like, YouTube, like other forms of information, like this channel right here. for their information. Like they're not going to sit and read an article, especially one from a games journalist news outlet that's doesn't give you any fucking information whatsoever. Or maybe in like all the bloat, maybe like 20% of it is the information you're looking for. Like 80% of it is ads, or like 60% of it are just ads, and 20% of it is just fluff. Oh, and you can only really get through 10% of it before it demands you sign in and you sign up to some stupid fucking thing that no one cares to sign up for.
13% is a symptom, not a disease. The audience is gone, the content isn't landing, and thanks to the changes in Google search algorithms prioritizing the biggest names, unless you're IGN, Forbes, or PC Gamer, you're basically invisible. And even then, you have to wonder, who's even reading this stuff? I'm not even saying that to be cruel, but I would be hard-pressed to name more than a dozen gaming outlets off the top of my head, let alone 135. And that's coming from somebody who actually reads this stuff. But then again, what would those missing articles have been about? While some are going to be shocked by this sudden drop, I'm definitely not. I'm wondering who's actually going to miss them. We don't need 15 articles all regurgitating the exact same press release. I've joked about this before, the media using return to form like it's a summoning spell every time a new game that they like flops, but that's the reality. The same quote, same take, same structure.
Yeah, that's
barely
also a problem, right? Like they cross-reference themselves, and every time a thing comes out, it's like within 30, 40 minutes, like, oh, you have an article from Kotaku, then an article from Polygon talking about the same thing, oh, an article from Eurogamer. Like they effectively just copy each other's homework, and if you've seen one, you've seen them all, effectively.
any variation. Take the Grand Theft Auto 6 delay. It was everywhere, but not a single outlet provided anything beyond the basic announcement. No exploration of Take-Two stock dropping, no discussions about how the pressure to meet earnings forecasts could shape Rockstar's internal decisions or set a precedent across the industry. Just the same surface-level reporting echoed across a dozen sites. That's not journalism. That's a carbon copy feedback loop designed to
Yeah,
farm
and they
SEO.
don't really talk negatively. Like they're probably told specifically by these companies, yeah, don't talk about the bad shit. You know, just give basic information about, oh, a game's been pushed back. Oh, here's a couple of quotes from the CEO or the CFO or some other games developer. Oh, that's it. And then it's ads, ad. They don't even really have their comment sections anymore. And most of these pages skip right to another article. Like, I remember when an article was a single, like when you clicked on an article, it only had that article and nothing else, but now there's like 5, 6, 7 articles slapped together in one, like, when you click one search. And it's like, okay, I get it. You're trying to mass produce information, but it's primarily information, one, people don't care about, two, some of it just ends up being wrong, and three, okay, maybe there's information in there that's actually relevant, but nobody cares.
And of course it is, because it's all just a pipeline for ads. It's no surprise the players are tuning out. Most of these sites are unreadable without an ad blocker. Autoplay videos that are blaring over text, walls of pop-ups that choke out the content. Even if you do manage to navigate that minefield, half the time a paywall is going to slam down on you mid-scroll. It's not just bad, it's an actively hostile environment for readers. So players are going elsewhere. They're turning to YouTube and streamers, Twitter and Reddit, TikTok, where
Yeah, like, there are porn sites with less ads than most news journalists like sites, and clicking on one almost guaranteed you a virus. And this is in the early 2000s. You were almost guaranteed a fucking virus if you accidentally clicked it, or if you have the tiny little X that you click, which you need to click like the microscopic box in the top right hand to actually exit out, because the whole X isn't even representative of closing it. Like it's ridiculous. Like you can go to any article now and just see, just the wall of ads on them. I'm not gonna do it in this video, but you absolutely can.
Where else they can go, because at least those people are talking to them, not down to them. At least they're entertaining. At least they're authentic. At least they respect your time. You can throw a video on in the background, let it ride while you're at work or you're commuting, and you can get an actual discussion, not a barely rewritten press release that's covered in ads. Which honestly, that makes this all the more baffling that these outlets have not adapted. Videos should be their strong suit. They already write this kind of content. They should turn it into a script, do a voiceover, add some footage, post it to YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, anywhere. There is no excuse. I was stunned to realize that I am catching up to Kotaku and YouTube subscribers. Me, a guy that's making videos in his spare time, closing the gap on an outlet that's been around since 2004. Polygon has 1.4 million subscribers. And sure, some of their videos actually get some pretty solid views, but they only post once or twice a month. And when they do, it's stuff that people didn't even ask for, like a lore video or a lore breakdown video on how Avowed does lore better than everybody else, a game that's already fading from memory and was widely criticized for being bad at lore. I mean,
one, because people don't really go to Polygon for lore, but two, sometimes they just lie. Like, okay, Avowed has better lore than other games. Okay, maybe. Better than games that have none. Or no, I'd even say games that have no lore, probably better. To my knowledge, this game is just mid. Like, I never play it because I don't care to.
Business side of me is genuinely frustrated that these guys are sitting on a gold mine of content and they are wasting it. Skill Up and Gamer Ranks write articles and newsletters and then they turn it into content. Why can't they? They write multiple articles a week, convert them into videos, double dip. Instead, they cry about AI stealing their jobs and sue OpenAI, even though half of their writers are probably using ChatGPT behind the scenes to meet their deadlines by spinning up slightly different versions of what everybody else has already written. The truth is, there is no outside force that's killing them. Not AI, not YouTubers, not Google. It's their own lack of adaptability, their own lack of relatability. That's what's actually eating these guys alive. This collapse is total and it's systemic. It's not just a few bad outlets or a couple controversial takes. It's not just Polygon or Kotaku that's writing things that nobody cares about. It's an entire media apparatus out of step with the players, out of touch with developers, and completely unprepared for how media consumption has evolved. And they haven't just failed to adapt, they've doubled down on the very behaviors that is driving audiences away in the first place.
Yeah, they work hand in hand with other sites, other media sites, their constituents on Twitter and in these companies to just effectively set, like, fear monger. And at first it kind of worked because they did change games, but now people are like, okay, well, even absolute normies that just don't care for this zeitgeist are not playing the games because they're noticing how boring and bland they are. And no one's watching them. Like, no one cares for Polygon. Like, okay, they're laying off 1,000 people. Good fucking riddance.
Instead of reflecting, learning from the failures of their peers, they are lashing out. Instead of reporting, they are correcting. Look no further than PC Gamer's roundup of 2024's biggest gaming controversies. They boil down the criticisms of Assassin's Creed Shadows just to outrage over Yasuke, as if concerns about historical authenticity were conjured out of nowhere, definitely not brought up by Ubisoft themselves. They ignored valid conversations, and by doing so, they poisoned the well. Then there was their response to Black Myth Wukong when Game Science didn't apologize for some loose allegations that were made against them. PC Gamer wrote, naturally, the usual parts of the Twitter sphere were thrilled to see a developer being so based, especially since Black Myth Wukong was a hit. Proof positive that real gamers don't want politics in their games.
Yeah, this is what I mean, right? Like, the consumer is just working against, the gaming journalists. And then because you shat on this game, it probably got more people to play the game than people that watch you. Like, they sold millions of copies within the first, week. Like, yeah, it's real difficult to explain this because it's like they don't even care to understand what's going on. They don't try to critically think on why this is happening. They just throw a moral label, disregard any actual criticism thrown at them, or disregard any praise giving to the game, and they just shut their ears to all of that and then just go after the consumer.
Or some such. Others viewed the whole thing more as just strange and a little creepy. Then they finished with saying, it's hard not to read the silence as a sign that game science feels it has nothing to apologize for. Yeah, maybe.
A little creepy that people bought a good fucking game? What the fuck?
Maybe that's because they don't actually have anything to apologize for. Maybe not every developer needs to pass a moral purity test before they're allowed to ship a game. Maybe some of these studios just want to make something cool without having to grovel for forgiveness for every manufactured scandal, but instead of respecting that, the media wants to treat silence like it's an admission of guilt. And this kind of behavior is everywhere. Bias is embedded into everything. Contempt for the audience is on full display. They retreat to places like Blue Sky to avoid feedback, posting articles like gamers are terrible people and we should stop being okay with it, only to follow it up later with it's time to start trusting video game reviewers. Yeah, that trust is not coming back. Not after years of talking down to players, punishing developers, and turning the medium built on creativity into a battleground for personal agendas. Polygon's collapse is not an isolated failure. It's a forecast. And it's a warning sign for all of these outlets still pretending like they have a voice of authority while the audience is quietly walking away. You don't get to ignore the people that you claim to speak for. You don't get to mock the community, miss the story, and still expect to be relevant. You either evolve or you fade out.
And it's something that the consumer want. Like, they want this to happen because they know that if these companies just go down and fail, or at least they're a shell of what they used to be, then the gamer is correct, right? I mean, you could have came to this conclusion earlier, but you wanted to play this song and dance, and fine. I mean, I'll gladly play it. Like, whatever. Yeah, if you want us to keep singing your downfall, go right ahead. And yeah, there are good game journalists, but they're not at Kotaku, right? They're not at Polygon. They're on YouTube. Because why? Like, well, yeah, I wouldn't put this on my resume when looking for a job. Okay, maybe if you're going to yet another game journalist company, because maybe that's what they want, is just have this club. But if you're applying for a job at McDonald's, maybe you shouldn't put that you worked at Polygon. Like, you'll be better off just saying, yeah, there's a 5-year gap.
To them, they already have. Press didn't lose the audience, they pushed them away. Now they're watching the lights go out, one outlet at a time. Now this may sound crazy, but games journalism isn't dead. The reason why I say that is because I can bring up an article, I can cite it, I can read it word for word, and people will still engage. People will still watch the video, they'll enjoy it, they'll be entertained by it, they'll hear my opinion, the opinion of the writer, they'll come to their own opinion because it's an open dialogue, not a sermon. With so many of these outlets wanting to educate audiences instead of inform them, it's no surprise why nobody wants to listen to them. You know, we can have a conversation about how women are portrayed in games or diversity in games or whatever the hell else you want to talk about. We can do that without having to vilify the audience that you're trying to reach in the first place. It doesn't make any sense. I brought it up. The ESA reported in 2023 that 53% of gamers in the US alone are men. 72% of them are white. It is not an effective strategy.
Well, and again, they can't do that because they make the statement. They say gamers are bad, or gamers are sexist, or gamers are racist. Then they just look for specific things to justify their ideology. Like, this is how they act, right? They have this mindset that, no, everyone's against them, everyone's bad, but they are like the enlightened ones. They're the church. Because they went to a university and they have $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in debt, and they think they know better than the very people that played games, probably been playing games longer than they've been alive. But again, they just think they're above them until something like this happens. And it's like, well, have fun working at McDonald's, loser, because that's where you're going.
A large subsection of the audience that supports you or your industry. This isn't ideology, it's just math. You can reach these people, you can talk to them.
Yeah, and even saying 52%, like, that's a low number. I mean, maybe they're including, like, stupid fucking phone games. that women play, for which there are probably like 3 or 4 big games that are played by predominantly women. Of the 3 or 4 thousand games that are played by men, I mean, yeah, it's yes. I think 54 or 52, like you said, is still low, but whatever.
In most cases, they'll be willing to listen. But the minute that you start using buzzwords and catchphrases and try to bring politics into the conversation is the minute that their minds turn off. They turn away from the conversation. It's not an effective way to run a business, and it is definitely not an effective way to have a conversation. These are things that these guys should be professionals at. Beyond that, written media, that's really what's dying out. And some of it has to do with attention span. Some of it has to do with...
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're correct or if you're right. People don't care to be looked down on or to have someone morally grandstand over them. Like, shut the fuck up. You're not my mom. Or you're not my dad. You're not the church. Like, get the fuck out of here. Tell me what I need to know or you fuck off. Like, that's the business agreement we're having.
The ads that are on some of these sites, most of these sites don't even have a dark mode. That's so aggressive. Like, it hurts my eyes, man. Why do you do this to me? If it's not on Twitter or Reddit, most people aren't going to be reading it. In a lot of cases, they're getting most of their information from YouTube videos more than anything else. You have to adapt. You have to capitalize on that. And you have to do anything other than what you're doing right now, because it's not working. And to be honest with you, I don't really want all of them to go. I've said this multiple times. There's tons of writers that I like. And the minute that some of these folks start to wake up to
something... And then they know if they did, no one would watch them. They'd be like, nah, I ain't watching this weird shit. I'm going to just watch you legendary drops or what other game journalists like Bueller's News. Like, they know that they're not going to do it.
For this stuff is the minute things can get a little bit better, and I genuinely hope that they do. So hopefully some writers found a gleam of solid information in here, or a little bit of advice that they might take into their writing, or maybe they take into their YouTube career, or whatever it might be. Who knows? Thank you guys for watching. If you guys did enjoy the video, share the video, like the video, comment down below. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so that I can go past Kotaku. Outside of that, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Catch me on Twitch, and I'll smell you guys later.
Family, 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 family.
Got him. Yeah, it's a good video. And again, it's like you're saying things that they understand and they know, but it's this mental block that they have that they just cannot admit that they're wrong. Let's not forget, Polygon criticized Horizon Zero Dawn for not tackling themes on racial inequality in a game about fighting robot dinosaurs. Exactly. Like, they want you to add these weird things in reality that people don't care and to play in fiction. They didn't judge the game, they judged the player. Spot on. Yeah, it's like, once you do that, you lose people. A triumphant return to form from barista to a grifter to barista. From barista to grifter to barista. Oh, God. Imagine going to war with your own clientele and expecting your job in business to survive somehow. I'd say put the fries in the bag, but honestly, I wouldn't trust game journalists to even do that right. Most of these sites don't even have a dark mode. That's so aggressive. Gotta chuckle out of that. Man, you give a voice to so many gamers. Eloquent, respectful, and realistic. Keep it up. On God. But anyway, I got shit, so peace.